Out of cruel space into a wider galaxy, Part 46 for Newest England. Hostages are very useful things. Not the most honorable, but an unconscious meat shield that is someone very valuable to your opponents turns aside a great deal of enemy fire, which is what he's doing as he races through Blythe's base at a dead sprint. The small woman held in front of him as he moves too quickly before he shifts her to offer cover to his back so he doesn't get shot there. He skids into the main communication room and quickly takes aim. Technicians and officers scream and scatter as his coil shot slams into consoles and data towers. He already has what's useful in there for himself, but he has to make sure that the worm program is given more time, or at the very least is allowed to run rampant through Blythe's station, turning the 4-on-1 in orbit into a 3-on-1, or perhaps even a 3-on-2. At any rate, he's got decent odds in the orbital battle and wants to keep them favoring him as much as possible. Damage done, he takes off again. Today's exercise isn't even to kill the Vatras, it's to finish defanging them. He got the biggest teeth in his first effort and got one of his own. But after today, he would be the one left standing. Then it was time for a nice, sobering round of clean the mess. Gweno smiles as the firing solution comes through. The blue station is the first target. Milena prides herself and encourages her soldiers to be cool under pressure, which means they need to be taken out first. All hands, we have 4 firing solutions and we are focusing on target blue before displacement. We only need 85% charge to knock that station out of the sky. Fire when sufficient charge is reached. Pilots, warm up the main maneuvering thrusters for rapid movement and fire when the all-seeing cannon is crumbling. I don't know what level of communication or sensors our enemies have, but only the blind, deaf, and dumb will miss the light show. I want their return fire hitting empty sky. Main cannon at 70% charge. Her girl shouts up to her. Reconfirm firing solution. Pilots, prepare for high burn displacement. Vector is voidward and spinward. Get ready to get us further from the planet and further along its orbital path. Captain, that leaves Laveron itself as the backdrop for our attacks. Any misses on our main cannon will hit the ground, which is why we will not miss, but I do not trust the firing ability of our opponents. We will not allow them to endanger our home in their panic. Gweno counters, and there is a cheer among the crew. 80% charge. Today we take our home back. Today the despotic and destructive fall to us. The people of Laveron, we stand for our homes. We stand for our families. We stand for each other, and we stand against them. Is the cannon ready? 86% charge. Fire! Gweno roars out. The signal is obvious and amazing. The overcast sky above melts under the sheer power of an orbital station, reducing another to shrapnel. That's our cue, girls. Move! 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 The sound of crunching stone, snapping branches, and the whine of powerful engines sound out as the combat walkers start moving. Most of them already have their fresh paint jobs scuffed up and scratched away. There hadn't been enough time to let the stuff dry or put enough layers on to stop the branches of the trees they're shredding from scraping it all off. At least that was the case for most of them. Some girls tried to be really artsy and painted the weapon barrels. Poor dumb girls forgot about the sheer heat of the weapons and how most paint isn't rated for staying uncharred on red-hot metal. Okay, so she was one of those idiots, but she expected it to happen. The burnt paint gave the barrel a certain charm, a big splash of white, and you see where the heat is in about as organic a way as a massive, stompy war machine can be. Her route, and the route of the girls directly with her, take her away from Brahmastra's forces, and as tempting as shooting them in the back right now is, the barrage she and her squad had given them was making them trade shots with other forces while also giving Blythe's base some love. Things were going damn near perfect, which had her on edge. Chaos is the natural state of a battlefield, and chaos is not known for following anyone's plan. The first hint of it is when a battlesuit next to her stumbles a little, but her own experience lets her catch the girl. Everyone, this is Mata. I'm receiving a lot of reports of unstable terrain. Stay close to other walkers and brace each other if you start to fall. I don't want anyone left prone for the Vatras' forces to murder. The field commander's voice echoes out, and she nods before shouting her confirmation for the low-yield microphone to pick up. The shouting actually helped with morale, made her feel like an unstoppable queen of battle. She tilts herself a few times as she and the walker she ends up beside rush to the indicated position. The sky is already filling up with anti-air laser and plasma shots, turning an increasingly bright day into a light show that's painting everything in bright blue and white hues. All right, girls, we're moving on to bombardment. Our enemies are a little too cautious and need a reminder as to why they're about to fly into our trap. Everyone take up position and point those cannons skyward. We're hitting high target green, Martha informs them. Hell yeah, we're blowing Brahmastra's station out of the sky. She cheers as the targeting data is fed into her computer and she syncs up her primary cannon to it. The cannon is designed to run silently, run cold, and run without shaking things. But when it really puts its power up, the entire walker shakes hard enough for her voice to distort. For Laveron, she screams out as the capacitors reach full charge and the entirety of the energy is dumped into the artillery cannon for a single, synchronized blast. Oh, I was one of the slow ones. Her jaw clenches hard enough for teeth to crack, and she feels one outright splinter in her gums. They would pay. They would all pay. All forces, this is your Vatras. They have murdered your sisters. Get to the ground. Sweep through the forest and shatter the walkers. Take them out at the legs. Aim low. I want to personally hear each of them scream for this insult. She dives with her warsuit and skids in low. They want the skies? Fine. She'll reduce the ground they stand on to slag. She'll send each one of them screaming to their ancestors. She looks into the rear-view screen and sees that her forces are with her. Good. The short-range communications were still up and moving. Blood in her mouth, burning in her veins and pounding through her skull, she leads her troops in low and hard. Fast and strong, a few of Melena's idiot reptiles falls out of the sky not far away, and Shun's reckless idiots are being constantly winged. But her women understood how to get in and break an enemy line, too. The rocket slams into chest plate of the charging warsuit, and the greater damage it does is a complete disruption of the internal circuitry. Martha grins even as her second reloads the rocket launcher, and she hears the soldier inside babbling in a concussed state. This might not be as bloody as most anticipated, which is both a good and bad thing. The important part is killing the power of the Vatras. If the girls survive, it doesn't really matter, and she dives down and knocks her second out of the way as another suit of armor clearly found their retreat hole despite the desperate rush, and there's a crash as another suit slams into it. Having not noticed the reason for the sudden stop of its fellow and not being able to decelerate in time to avoid a collision. From another direction and another hidden hole, a rocket screams out and slams into both warsuits. This time, the hit causes a feedback loop on one armor's main power core, and it rapidly goes into overload. Martha and her second rush to a fallback position as hard as they can and just barely get into cover before the weapon detonates and shreds all three suits of battle armor. The stones that form the back armor of the hidey hole crack, and a chunk of mildly runny metal is impaled between the rocks. Damn, Martha's second says in shock. No kidding. No one told me those cannons overload that dramatically. I don't think anyone knew. Her second remarks. Yeah, time to correct that, Martha says, opening her communicator and tuning it to all forces behind that crazy human. Everyone, this is Ground Commander Thornsaddle. Be careful with your rockets. The main arms used by Brahmastra's combat suits are prone to explosive overload if damaged. Confirm information. Confirmations ring out hard and fast. Watch you shots, girls! We need to... The sky lights up a third time, this time from within the heavens once more. A blast erupting up and away from Laveron. Keep your heads on swivels and your launchers loaded. Our enemies are here, and we're the defense for our walkers. We might have lost our station, but we still have a fight to win. Damage report, Gweno barks out. Left docking platform is lost. Left side thrusters non-responsive. Defensive laser batteries are down to 55% effectiveness. Target yellow only expended half power in that shot. They're preparing another. Target red is repositioning. They have ground communications. Then Blythe is still alive and in control. But that means, Gweno says in horror, is this it? One big hurrah for a failure. Target red is on an intercept course with target yellow. Impact in 15 seconds. What? Thank you very kindly for this. It's an enormous help, Philip notes as he rests his communicator on the back of Blythe's neck. The woman is still out cold thanks to some axiom, but that's just useful as he's able to piggyback his own commands off its signal. All that time learning the incredibly dry and boring art of hacking from those gentlemen had paid off. Thankfully, he had already paid those self-styled nerds in full with his own lessons, to them as they had traveled through cruel space. Still, a single important order, and everything was coming together. The stations are colliding even now, and this leaves his station open and ready to take a final kill shot. Things are nearly done here. Oh no, thank you, Yzma says as the sound of numerous explosions ring out and the delighted cackle of Giselle. You lighting that fire in her with your toy was easily worth the entire trip. Some children just like to see things explode. That your little girl is one is a delight. Can I keep the grenade launcher? Giselle asked from her position. She hadn't really hit any one person, but she had reduced a T intersection into the kind of image that someone would use as anti-war propaganda. I can do you one better. I'll cash in a favor so you can have your own custom launcher. And if you ask nicely, I'll see if I can't get a torpedo launcher as well for when things need to be entertaining in the water. Please? Oh, please. Pretty please, Giselle begs and Philip laughs. Very well then. When we're through this, I'll pull some strings. Although, fair warning, explosions don't leave much in the way of trophies. Or meat, for that matter. That's fine by me. Wee-hee-hee-hee. Giselle giggles as she lets out more shots from the seemingly endless drum of explosives. Then there's a clicking sound. What? No more boom? She's out of ammo, someone calls out, and there's the sound of rapid movement as Blythe's forces start trying to rush them. Press the switch on the bottom of the drum, Philip calls over as he takes his communicator off of Blythe and pockets things. Giselle does so and then tries firing again. The explosion is even bigger. Whoa! Incendiaries, nasty stuff, Philip notes as he walks up behind her. I suggest you go a little easier with these ones. The frag grenades you used earlier were nasty, but these ones are downright criminal in some places. The outright demonic cackle from the thoroughly enthused Mara has him more than mildly concerned. We did it. We actually did it, Gweno says as the destroyed target yellow and target red crumble to tiny shards in the atmosphere. Reorient the main cannon for our final firing arc today, and then get repair crews moving. The day's nearly done, girls. We've won. Now let's seal this win with a bow on it. It's going to take a little longer than anticipated, Captain. We only have half the thrusters. Take your time and do it right. We need to make sure the Empire keeps a respectful distance. I think we've seen enough. There's only a single station left, and it's damaged. We can send in the fleet and retake Laveron without a fuss. The incoming! She's cut off by an assistant, and everyone braces themselves before static screams through the communication link back with headquarters, and it's cut off. What just happened? November demands, as every scrounges around. Then her personal communicator buzzes, and the message there chills her blood. A warning. Captain November, our main communication array is shredded. The attack came from the remaining station on Laveron. A second message. This one is from headquarters. What happened? She takes a few breaths and nods, then types in her response. Remaining station exceedingly deadly. They just gave us a single warning. We are heating it and returning to base for repairs. ETA 20 hours. Out of Cruel Space into a Wider Galaxy, Part 47. For Newest England, bright sky blue and a wreath of dark green leaves surrounding a trinity of white rectangles forming a triangle. 26 flags on 26 coffins. A pittance in exchange for a world. A pittance in exchange for a single warlord, let alone 4. 26 women he led to their deaths. Each one a personal failure. Each one his own kill as assuredly as if he had strangled them all in sequence. He knows this is a lie. He knows that 100 times their number would have gladly slit their own throats for the victory they achieved. He knows these women are laughing in the afterlives they've won and will be remembered in glory. But before the service for their fallen, he takes time to internalize all of it. Blessedly, this was a lesson he hadn't had to have Harriet or Herbert put into practice yet. The great secret to unimaginable skill. firm, foreboding, and unending inspiration. He goes into danger because he can dodge bullets. These women could not, and now they are dead, because of him and the choices he has made. He takes a few more moments and nods to himself. That's enough. Any more isn't a solemn inspiration to perform better, merely useless self-flagellation. There's a line between being inspired by the fallen and waiting in misery, and he leaves the room before he crosses it. He pauses at the edge of the threshold to the chamber as something niggles at him. According to their living god of a soldier, there is an afterlife. There are souls, and therefore, he turns around, his heels clicking together. Soldiers of Laveron, your mission was successful. You are relieved of your duties with full honors. Dismissed. He salutes the caskets, and there is a sense of relief that he honestly cannot tell if it came from himself or from the caskets. There was nothing physical about it, nothing in the axiom, but the relief was felt either way. Real or not, true or not, he can do nothing more about it. So he dismisses things and turns out the light before leaving. There are more preparations to make, both for the victory celebrations and for what comes after. A dazzling smile is flashed to the entire room as he enters the command chamber, and applause echoes back at him with nearly manic fervor. Thank you indeed, but I was just the madman at the tip of the spear. Without the rest of you working with me, this would have been nothing more than a sticky end. Told you. Yzma teases the women nearest to her, and they start tossing coins at the Grand Hunt's mistress in exasperation and annoyance. Betting on my humility, are we? Philip asks in an amused tone. What can I say? Long odds are hilarious. Yzma notes. Long odds? After everything you did? No way you were actually going to be humble about it, Yzma says with laughter. So if not for the glory, why did you do all this? The thrill, the prize, or something else? Duty, my dear. For duty I have done this. I have the duty of expanding the reach of the British Empire to 2 stars, which means ensuring that there are no warlords, ordered bureaucracy, a strong army, stronger economy, and most importantly, pride. Pride as a people, proud to be of this world, proud to be part of the British Commonwealth. Even though, according to what I've looked into, things aren't anywhere near as rosy as that, Matha states, and Philip gives her a long, slow look with a single raised eyebrow. Then he smirks. The flaw in your reasoning is the difference between striving for perfection and accepting mediocrity. Does my nation fail to live up to its ideals? Often, as does every other nation. But that does mean that you stop striving to be your best self. If anything, it should inspire you, drive you even harder to achieve the glory that at times seems to live only in your mind or at a great distance. That's one way of looking at things, Matha states. I find it a better one. You have fought and bled for Laveron, placing yourself in the kind of danger that can and has claimed the lives of others. Did you do it for the failures, weaknesses, and faults of Laveron? Or did you do it for the shining glory that you know it can be? Did you fight for how things are, or for what they can be? Philip asks, and Matha stands a little taller. There we are. Just remember that. Remember we fight not for what things are, but for what they can be. After all, if no one fights for a better future, it will never be. And he veered into cheesy. Boo! Boo, I say! Yzma taunts him. Oh, get a sense of drama, woman! He taunts back, and as Yzma smirks, Giselle blows a raspberry at him. The gall young lady has clearly found her way out of her shell. We did it, Shelley exclaims as she returns from a nearby hallway, one that has the nearest bathrooms in it. So she stepped out for a few moments and came back to find things already beginning. We did indeed, Philip calls back as the Platem woman rushes up to him, grabs him, and plants a kiss that is either pure enthusiasm or an attempt to taste his earlier lunch. We did it! We did it! We did it! Yes, we did. Now please calm down. The fun part is over. The hard part begins now. Philip agrees. The hard part? Rebuilding. Standing down and repatriating the surviving Vatras forces, repairing our war station and rechristening it into something more suitable. Perhaps the Lance of Laveron? Yes, that's perfect. We need to... Shelley begins to exclaim, and Philip puts a finger to her lips. Calm down, my dear, and please, Dispel whatever image you have of me in your mind. I'm not perfect, and this series of events did not go off as I hoped. Were I anywhere near as skillful as you think I am, this room would be a fair bit more full. Speaking of, if you would all follow me, please, I think we should at least thank those that gave everything for today's victory. Philip says, and the room becomes rather quiet. Then everyone moves to stand, and they follow him out. In the end, the memorial room is not large enough for everyone. So it's left open, and everyone is advised to take their time to say their goodbyes and thank the departed. It sobers everyone up and brings the mood down. But it also means that everyone's good and ready to talk about more serious things. Things such as what to do next and where to focus the rebuilding. But first the fighting must end. They have a limit of time before the Empire returns. So they need to unify as quickly as possible. And so the local stations are interrupted for a special message. Communicators ring with an incoming message, and it's the same for everyone. First, it waves the banner of Laveron, the tritype blue with a wreath of green and the white rectangles forming the triangle. People of Laveron, lend me your ears! A bold and powerful voice announces for everyone to hear. The Vatras are defeated. The image shifts to show Blythe and Milana in cells. Shun and Brahmastra are in hospital beds and hooked up to machinery keeping them alive. The only war station remaining is in my control. The image shifts to the empty skies and showing the partially broken yellow war station that's being repaired even as the camera focuses there. I call to the remaining forces of the Vatras. Lay down your arms, surrender peacefully, and keep your honor. You are all women of Laveron. Your home calls to you to defend her, but first she must be safe from you. Let the false divisions that these four warmongers laid low slip away. Let the chains of fear, greed, falsehood, and lust they have entrapped you in shatter. For too long has this beautiful world been under the command of tyrants and fools who are unfit to so much as stand upon it, let alone rule it. It is time for all who call Laveron home to stand together. Let no one deny that our situation is grim, whether it is under the madness of the Vatras or the reckless indulgence of the Gavali Empire. We cannot deny that our trials and tormentors are legion. However, the promise of the Vatras was false from its inception, and so a new truth must be found. A new vision must be sought. And if you would stand with me, then not only will I show you way to a strong and proud future, but I will both first and last to defend this world. Let none of Laveron wage war against another of Laveron. Let the Empire of Gavali take notice and quake in its boots at our righteous presence. I have been sent from out of cruel space into a wider galaxy for a brighter future. So let that bright future be now. Let that bright future be here. I have spent my life fighting the despotic, corrupt, and cruel, and I bring to you all that skill and experience. Young I may be, but I have been sent with a mission to bring the strength and pride of my home to another, and I bring it here. To you, for you, stand with me, join the Commonwealth, stand together strong. Then the image shifts, but do not forget those that laid down their life to see this day happen. Do not forget those who sacrificed everything so that we may have a chance at a better future. These brave souls gave everything to break the power of the Vatras. So if nothing else means anything to you today, remember 26 good women died for you. Remember and honor them. I am Sir Philip Bernard Masterson, and I thank you for your time. Now, if you'll excuse me, there is much to do to heal and protect this beautiful world. By your leave. 8 out of 10. Dis notes. Oh, thank you, Philip replies. You're being too nice. He played it way too soft. 6, no, PI out of 10, Mechi heckles. PI out of 10? Really? Philip asks in an amused tone. And you're lucky to get that. Where was the throne? The threats of doom and damnation on any and all who would oppose you. Come on. Surely you can come up with at least a pile of skulls to sit on while battle walkers flank you or something. Come on, Mechi rants. I think that would send the wrong message, Philip notes, or at least some footage of you kicking ass. I have a bad habit of avoiding cameras or deleting recordings of myself. It's fairly instinctive and automatic at this point. You and your bad habits, boss man. Yes, absolutely atrocious activities for a spy and assassin. Philip mocks him right back. Oh my goodness, that's where I recognize you. You're the Shine Scale girl. I heard you were found on Octarin's spin. Oh my goodness, are you named well? You're downright lustrous, little lady. Isma cuts everyone off as she grabs Helen under the arms and holds her up. I was so upset when I heard your family refused to pay any ransom. A little girl needs her mommy and daddy. Isma, please do not adopt my student. Again, Philip remarks. Again? I know how you treat Herbert. If you haven't already considered him an adorable child that's effectively yours, I'll eat my tie, Philip remarks. Does it really count if he's more a grandchild in one's mind? Isma asks. It counts, Philip counters. Can I be put down now, please? Helen asks. And please don't mention my family. I'm still very much in the they're dead to me stage. Oh, of course. You know they held a funeral for you, Isma says as she lets the much smaller Cloakin down. I shot the view screen when I saw that, Helen spits out. So no plans on speaking to them? No, Helen spits out. She's still receiving counseling, Philip states. I still don't get how forgiving them will help me, Helen spits out. Because hating someone just takes up too much energy. Better to forget them and move on. Otherwise, they will hold on to you. And this has nothing to do with the fact you've run into this situation before, Helen asked. Well, pardon me for wanting to defuse a bomb I'm familiar with. Philip says, Now? Good. The first group has surrendered. Time to see if they're willing to swear an oath of loyalty. And you're not concerned about them lying? I'm able and willing to deal with that when it comes to that. And then they will have an example of what happens when I'm crossed, Philip says in a genial tone. Right as I'm starting to get comfy around him again, he says scary shit like that. Dis remarks, My apologies, truly. Philip states before offering them all a salute as he starts a call on his communicator and begins to walk some distance away to continue the conversation. Out of Cruel Space into a Wider Galaxy, Part 48 for Newest England. The wait was infuriating, not the 48 hours since she woke up. That was bad, and it had also shown her that the Axiom suppression collar around her neck was not coming off with her head in the way. And of all things a Yorgwa can shift and alter, the head is off limits. Unless someone wants severe and often incurable disorders becoming the order of the day. And this situation is hard enough without a completely substandard mind. A simple gray room with white light, a reasonably comfortable chair that accommodates her lovely tail, a table and another chair on the opposite side. Standard tailless design on that one, so it's no Yorgwa, Nagasha, or any number of other species meant to sit there. No room for the tail and nowhere near large enough for a bigger species. The door opens and she's finally greeted by her primary captor. Blythe's bounty. Tell me, was the destruction you caused deliberate, or are you as incompetent as your master? Considering you've never met the people I call master, I'm going to assume you've mistaken me for being some agent of Blythe's, the man states. She will admit he is incredibly handsome up close. Had he scales instead of skin, she would consider this moment some part of a very suggestive dream. Add a slight muzzle and a tail poking out ever so, and he'd be a subtle form, and her mind snaps back into place. It's much harder to focus without Axiom to keep her on the straight and narrow. One's mind is their most powerful tool, and so you were shockingly hated, even among those that you favored and protected. Apparently laying the blame for all evils on races so common that everyone everywhere has one for a friend or family member doesn't win you many hearts or minds. Funny that, the man states. Who are you? Really? I'm in charge now, former Vatras Milena. There is some debate as to what my title will be, but I'm entering the noble class for the second time in my life. The man states, Lucky you. She hisses out, trying to get some bearing on this situation. The damn collar was scrambling everything. She could barely control her tail, let alone control it with the minute attention to detail that she preferred. It was just a crude club in the here and now, barely responding to her impulses and commands. If you're looking for a name, it's Masterson, Sir Philip Masterson. Sir, I consider my knighting by the Queen of my homeland one of the proudest moments of my life. On the same tier as my descendants taking their first breaths or steps and seeing my students fully come into their own. There is a great power to legacy, wouldn't you agree? She merely growls at him. No, you wouldn't, would you? The information I compiled about you tells me that you care very little for what happens outside of your own power, care little for the rest of the galaxy, a pattern of behavior that is a couple decades old and no older. Philip notes as he pulls out a paper folder with her picture on it in the corner. He holds up a few pieces and her eyes widen to show that it's a physical report on her. So, for the sake of curiosity and little else, when and why did you decide that everyone who is not a reptile is inherently lesser? It shows here, 18 years and 5 months ago was your first blatant act of racism. Racism? We're not one species. We're different. And if we were to have some horizontal entertainment, is there? Or is there not a more than fair chance of a healthy child? It's the axiom that does that. Yes, it binds us, penetrates us, and most relevantly to this conversation, unites us. So long as axiom continues to act in the way it does, then the differences between you and me are more akin to separate demographics of one massively varied species than two species. No, different demographics of the same species produce a hybrid child with the traits of both, and a hypothetical child between you and I would have human and Yorg's traits. But they would be a human or Yorgwa. Milena pauses. You're not a Tret with modifications at all, are you? No, Philip remarks. So it's true, madness lives in cruel space. She hisses and he smirks. Oftentimes, the distinction between madness and genius is based solely upon results. So I can state by that metric I'm far closer to genius than madness, Philip notes as he places 3 different papers on the table. I know it was ultimately victory that twisted you and your fellow Vatras. However, I'm trying to determine exactly what the catalyst was. The easy life where few opposed you merely fed into something already present. It's not evident in this cluster of behavior. Showing up faintly in this cluster 2 years later and a single year after that is absolutely blatant. What happened to turn you from a fair and clear-minded commander into a racist or specious despot within a mere 4-year span? That is what this is about, she asks pointedly, and he shrugs. It's not like there are any more secrets you have. I know all about your early career and skill. Between the 4 of you, you were more or less perfect as commanders. Battlefield strategy and defensive actions from Blythe. Shun could feed cities into obesity during a famine. Brahmastra could break a veteran force twice the size of her own, with only fresh recruits. And you, my dear, were able to keep massive supply and logistical trains working so smoothly that even in the chaos of frontline combat munitions, relief, and reinforcements was as plentiful as water in a rainstorm. Milena says nothing. You know, I had a surplus of options. Even within the Empire of Gavali, there are another 2 worlds which had everything. But the Vatras. What? Make no mistake, madam, I am one of the best. Period. Not limited to location or species or temporal placement. I am one of the best operatives to ever exist. I am a national treasure in my homelands. I raised myself up from a little boy living in the poorer parts of London and into a crown jewel of the empire, as surely as the literal jewels upon the actual crown. Good for you, she snips out. He's gone off topic and she has no intention of trying to steer the conversation. This is an interrogation. The less she speaks and the more she listens, the better for her. If he wants to give up psychological weaknesses, then that's all well and good now, isn't it? I have told you this because when I look at the reports of you Blythe, Brahmastra, and Shun working for the Empire of Gavali, I see peers near and perhaps full-on equals to myself. And now you have fallen. When you first took this world, it was reputation alone that kept the Empire away. Kept it away long enough for the war stations to be built, crewed, and by the time they sent their forces sniffing around, the system was nearly impregnable. At the time, you know as well as I that the Empire could, would, and did field troops in the trillions, with their fleet tonnage measured in the quintillions. That's enough firepower to wipe out 4 worlds in a single afternoon. And now you're... He gestures to her in seeming confusion, disgust, and despair. My war with you was always going to be one-sided, but that you have fallen so far made it one-sided in my favor. He slams the folder onto the table and stands up, adjusts his cuffs, and takes a deep breath. I'm going to get a breath of fresh air. When I return, I expect an answer as to how you fell so far and so thoroughly. Your pardon, please." Then he sweeps out of the room, leaving Milena to her thoughts. Her thoughts and the file on herself, on what he knows about her. "Told you," Philip notes as they see her reading over her own file. "Security feeds and cameras were wonderful things." "You really think that there's hope for the Vatras?" Mechi asks. I don't know. But the people of Leveron are still highly opposed to the death penalty," Philip says. "But we'll see. Honestly, the locals are far more forgiving than I thought. Already they surprise me." "Yeah, I'd have lined them up in front of some construction equipment and sold seating with complimentary gore ponchos for the people in the splash seats," Mechi says, and a disgusted Philip slowly turns to him. "What? That's foul," Philip remarks. "I'll get a proper swear out of you someday." "If you want me to swear, just say so." "No, it has to be organic. I need a solid what the fuck?" "Out of you," Mechi explains. "What the fuck?" Philip tries and Mechi sighs and shakes his head. No, that's stale, boring, and fake. I need it from the soul," Mechi exclaims, and Philip sighs. "See that? That was from the soul. Now I need rage, confusion, and shock in it," resisting the urge to flick the childish techno-whiz in the ear. Philip looks over the next 3 files: Blythe, Brahmastra, Milena, and Shun. The former platinum standard of the Empire of Gavali, now a paranoid, a lunatic, a racist, and a pervert. He really was curious as to what laid them all so low. Something was wrong. The mission was technically complete, but there's more to do. Philip trusts his instincts. He had reduced innumerable clear kills into mere scars by listening to them. Anastasia could attest for more than a few of them. His nigh unnatural ability to survive and dodge death always boiled down to listening to this urge. And it was hammering at the back of his neck, as if someone were poking him in Morse code. There's something incredibly important here that he can't ignore any further. But the question is, what? "I need to speak with my contacts in the Empire. Something isn't adding up, and I believe they have another piece. Tell Dis and Helen to take the next few interrogations. I need to look into this. Yesterday." "Wait, what's going on?" "Something's bothering me. I don't know what, but I know where to get a better idea. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and this can be let go. If I'm right, then a lot of things will suddenly make sense." "About the Vatras?" Yes, it's not odd for people to drag each other into bad habits. It's not odd for people who've won a major victory to ride it all the way down into an inevitable defeat. But none of the Vatras degenerated in the same way. They should have rubbed off on each other. They were firm friends at fist. Them being fallen isn't odd. But for them to be so distinct and downright pure in their deviations is. Hey, that is weird. The hell is going on? I don't know. I do need to get talking to someone. Excuse me, please. Why the sudden interest in recent history? A shadowed figure asks, as a very specific number had called him. He wasn't the most ambitious person, but he had dreamed of excitement, of adventure, and being the deniable informant for a spy. It had seemed like a fun game at first, but after seeing the results, he was in it. He was in a conspiracy against the Empire, and was not just conspiring against them, but was a valuable conspirator. A strange pattern, or rather, a lack of one, in the Vatras of Leveron. I need some deeper information on the activities of high-ranking officers that are no longer in services to the Empire of Gavali, both those who left on good terms and those that did not. That's not even protected information. No, but some aspects may be conveniently left out or redacted in the public files. I'll be getting those myself, so another copy from you to see what's missing and what isn't will be incredibly useful, Philip says on the other side. All right, it's not protected anyways. Tell them you're a fan about some of their accomplishments, and you won't just be ignored, but you'll likely get off the record tidbits. A pair of shining eyes looking on in wonder will get them talking without end, man or woman. People love to boast, Philip advises him, and he chuckles. All right, I'll get your information. But a word of warning. I was going to call you about this soon anyways. What is it? Captain November is pissed. Ah, the warning shot was a little too close to home then? She's being held liable for the damages to her ship and is in a fury about it. Standard empire procedure. They try to encourage greatness through punishment more than reward. It's felled other empires before. You might get a front row seat to some fascinating bits of history. The way you said that scares me. And to think it has nothing to do with our friendship, merely your co-workers and their employers. Merely, he says when referring to an interstellar army. The man teases him. Merely indeed, Philip confirms with a near audible smirk. If there's nothing else, have a wonderful day, my friend. I have some research to do. And so do I. Talk to you soon. Out of Cruel Space into a Wider Galaxy, Part 49, for Newest England. Fallen to obsession, arrested for deviancy, public nuisance. Why are some of these women going mad in such extreme ways and others are not? He asks as he looks ever the details of all sorts of differing dismissed or retired commanders from the Empire of Gavali. But there was no clear divide between those that were fired, those that left willingly, and those that retired with full honors. Madness, obsession, and clear mental breaks were very common among them. But there was no clear pattern at the moment. Beyond the madness, at any rate, there was that sensation again. Slightly different. The information is here, but hidden. He compiles the definitive list of all the women who had worked for the Gavali Empire and succumbed to madness before starting to dig through what files were available to see what they have in common. Then it clicks. They were all part of the empire at the same time, in similar positions of rank and status. He's navigated enough militaries and governments to not only smell a cover-up at the first whiff, but to get an idea of the general type. Now the question was this a control method or a botched upgrade? Part of him hopes for the revered third category of something else, as it's rarely that, and it usually spices up the mission. Of course, it can make things infinitely more complicated until he finds the simple and obvious in retrospect root of things, but he does like the challenge. Yes, the answer is covered up. Now the question of control, failed improvement, or something else, he mutters out loud. Time for the waiting part. It was the problem with sprinting through research and investigations. It took a while for the rest of the world to catch up, so he does the next thing and heads to his temporary office. There you are. I looked for you in your office and was sent to the interrogations, but they told me you vanished. His current assistant exclaims, rushing up to him. She's a former chemical scientist that was forced out of her industry by the Vatras. If things had continued, he would have been employing her to concoct a poison to help him. However, his own stores and his own efforts had already proven to be enough. My apologies, Edwina. Some concerns came up and I was forced to take a minute and find an answer. Or rather, another answer. Things are a little more off than I assumed. Off? Off how? She asks. It's odd that the four Vatras, four women who were close enough to trust each other in sedition, conspiracy, and then they each split apart, begin fighting each other, while developing distinct psychosis that have little, if anything, to do with their shared experiences, and instead vastly exaggerate seemingly random traits. Oh, shit. Like many suspicious things, you need to actually notice them before you realize how odd they are, Philip tells her gently. That's not to say that these women aren't responsible for their own actions. They're still themselves, and they haven't been puppeteered or forced into their crimes. But they clearly have someone or something that is acting more or less as a co-conspirator and corrupter. There are poisons that affect the nervous system, but the line between causing mental harm and outright killing someone is so thin that even with dedicated laboratory assistance, it's still too easy to get it wrong. Not to mention that kind of damage clears away in any kind of recovery coma or meditation. You've certainly looked it up. Before the Vatras came, I was working in a chemical lab. A lot of the things we worked with were highly carcinogenic. Ah, yes, Harridan Labs, was it? That was the overall company name. I was in Galera Laboratory. Ah, I'm sorry, he says. He knew the lab was destroyed, but it's just good manners to offer sympathy at this point. What are you sorry for? It was the Vatras that destroyed my home and job. You're giving it back. That I am. Which reminds me, what was your lab working on? I need to focus on more base infrastructure and logistical concerns. But if your lab was working on something useful, we were trying to create synthetic protein. Or rather, we were trying to find an easier way to do it beyond get a stupidly expensive, powerful, and temperamental transfiguration, adept to do the work. Yes, cutting the drama queen out of the equation usually makes things run smoother, Philip says in an amused tone, and Edwina chuckles. Yeah, unfortunately, the process we got to was so energy intensive that we risked null cascade every time and only got proton dust at best. So we tried looking for more earthy solutions. The answer we got there was time-consuming, to the point the first sample was barely 5% formed when the Vatras arrived. It might have hit 5.5% when the lab was destroyed a year later. 20 years for a single sample? Hey, if it worked, then we could have staggered proton production on a massive scale and earned ludicrous sums regularly and reliably. True enough, and something I'm very interested to hear more about. You are? I'm going to be ruling this world, which means I want it to be rolling in wealth. I want it to be the forbidden prize to all pirates because it has silly amounts of money, but such strong defenses that entire star nations would shatter their armies against us. You certainly dream big, don't you? That's what dreams are, my dear, the biggest plan you can conceive of, and they're nothing to be ashamed about, and often beautiful goals to strive for. Like how Shun dreamed of being surrounded by men all the time. If she had directed it into having a massive family the old-fashioned way, and not just with buying a harem, it would have been beautiful to see a military matriarch with so many sons and daughters, Philip says. Still, a proton printing factory in the future? Yes, please. No, we were just researching it to see if it was possible. And if you allow me to use the designs and blueprints to set up a factory so that it can be mass-produced and used to fund public projects, it would be a blessing. That's what you want to use it for? Roads, plumbing, natural restoration, things like that. Did you know that there are at least a dozen species of animal that have gone extinct due to the scars the Vatras have left on this world? Cloning them a stable population and reincorporating them into the wild is going to be expensive. Yes. Yes. Just realize that the orange warblers have been oddly quiet, haven't you? I grew up hearing them, she says with her eyes wide. He gives her a gentle hug. They'll be back, eventually. We have enough samples and enough knowledge of their behaviors to not only bring them back from beyond, but teach the newly hatched how to survive and thrive, Philip assures her. He then holds her out at an arm's length. Comforting someone is understandable, but professionalism is preferred when he's not outright seducing someone. Besides, he wants more time to work on Renari, see how much he can bring out of her. That done with her, he heads fully into his office to begin sorting things out. One of the main concerns was organizing the salvage and cleanup of the remains of the other war stations. Many of the larger pieces of superstructure were still usable, but re-entry had scorched a great deal of them to the point that a lot of internal components were nearly useless and had to be replaced. The shielding in some individual points was potent enough that there were plenty of internal components to go around and use, but the extraction, examination, and then installation would take some time. Until then, they had a single war station with limited docking, defensive batteries, and maneuvering, but it did still have its main cannon and all its sensors, meaning it was a threat to just about anything and everything in the system. After that was injecting some damn money into the economy. The personal hordes of the Vatras would be a start, one he could use to get the tea and tritite industries up and purring. So he starts drafting orders. He might not have liked his time at the head of his organization, being a field man and all, but he wasn't the type to do anything halfway. So he had put the reputation of his predecessors on notice all those years ago. And they had stunning terms in office, partially because they had him in the field. But he will admit that for all the hell he gave them, that they were very good at their jobs as well. Philip just made a point of being better at things than everyone around him. As a child, this trait was driving relatives to drink. In school, it nearly prompted a teacher to stab him. On the field, it had frustrated everyone around him, but he ended up very, very good at everything. And people usually got over how he was better at just about everything once they watched him practice. People can't respect someone who has things just given to them, so seeing him nearly break himself in half, for hours and hours on end just to get a few tricks right, calmed everyone down. A piece of legislation being sent to him has him concerned. They want to repeal every single law the Vatras made. His first impulse is to agree, but caution wins the day. Then he considers again and drafts some legislation of his own. They want the laws repealed. So does he, but he wants the people to do it themselves. So he will have judges come together once a month and debate on laws while being publicly broadcasted. Until every Vatras law is addressed, they will always be the primary concern of a debate, and the public will watch as their lawmakers debate, and they will be able to make further judgments on the judges themselves. His own workload just reduced by a large margin. The public given a gift, and his judicial system given a touch of oversight, he moves on to the next concern, which is his communicator goes off in a specific pattern. He activates a scrambler and answers. Gravia splicing. The man says reduced to a silhouette by the dim light of the monitor. This was bad and big and likely many other things. This needed out because this was going to get someone killed. I'm sorry? Philip asked. It's what connects the Vatras with the other commanders in the army and out. Everyone that went crazy was part of an enhancement program. One that's still going on, but not everyone went mad. Not visibly, at any rate. Philip returns. Yes, I considered that. What did they do? A permanent enhancement to the mind. There are techniques, albeit very difficult ones, that allow a person to temporarily gain the calculative and outright predictive analysis abilities of Gravia. But they don't last and are easily dispelled. These ones get baked into their axiom aura and comes back if the aura is dispelled for any reason, making it as automatic as temperature regulation, digestion, and all the other little things axiom helps with. I'm familiar with the original technique, Philip says as his mind churns over the implications. This was not good. Of course you are. Anyways, there's a program that every woman who's gone off the rails was a part of. It's classified, but not highly. It's had several successes, and I'm calling because Captain November is part of the program. Ah, and she's been insulted by me now. Coupled with Gravia-level mental abilities and its propensity for madness, this could be an issue. Tell me, I've found that the four generals have many others with their issues, but there's also rampant paranoia and a couple serial killers. Yes, 2/3 of the people that go into this program end up developing some kind of issue. None of them are, he says before pausing. Then shifting can be heard over the communicator, and Philip wisely says nothing while his contact shifts things around. In fact, Philip goes ahead and mutes himself, so nothing on his end can possibly make a potential issue become an actual problem. A new voice joins with his contacts. Barley, what are you doing here? A woman asks in the official Gavali language. Philip can understand, but his accent is currently atrocious. Oh, I got ahead of my work, so I decided to do an archive trawl. See if there was something I missed somewhere, or if any of the records needed a touch-up. Mr. Barley replies, and she walks in entirely. A touch-up? Do you have any idea how many spelling mistakes are in official archives? It's absurd. In some of these, I swear the person typing can't decide what language they're using. Mr. Barley says as he starts pointing things out on the screen with a wingtip. Look at that. I think they're trying to say that they want more psychiatrists, but the way it's reading it sounds like they're trying to order fast food. The woman leans in close to Mr. Barley and reads the screen over his shoulder. Then she starts laughing. It does, doesn't it? Still, if you've got this much free time, spend it in the break room looking pretty. It motivates the other girls. But it's boring in there. At least try it, okay? He agrees, and she leaves him to log off the computer and get out on his own. You caught all that? Caught and recorded. I'll go over it again later in case I'm not so good with your language as I assumed. Philip answers. Good. This needs more looking into. Maybe there's a cure. Maybe, but it is a concern. Out of Cruel Space into a Wider Galaxy, Part 50, for Newest England. Why do we keep finding these nightmares? Admiral Cistern sighs on his end of the call. Not quite sure, sir. I do hope it's because there's a limited amount, and we're just the curious sorts. But my investigations prove that this trick is a bit more of a recent phenomenon. Side effect of a galaxy where few people have the decency to die off, bad ideas can truly become endemic, Admiral Cistern notes. Considering some of Earth's own history and our failure to learn our own lessons, I don't think a cure for aging has anything to do with it. Philip notes thinking back to how horribly communism failed in Russia, only for China to cling to it all the tighter. To say nothing of the other routinely terrible ideas. Fair enough. Everyone's looking for the easy way to get a proper answer, and this one strikes far too close to home. We're going to look into our own memory training methods again. Maybe discontinue them for a time to make sure that our soldiers are good and stable. Cistern notes, that will slow recruitment and training. I doubt anyone will argue if we tell them it's to make certain those that had the dream training are healthy and capable. Or rather, they'll keep it down to light grumbling. Most men joining us just want a place to belong. Something they get in the first few days being with us, dream training or no. And the women just want the men for the most part, Admiral Cistern says in an amused tone. Not what you wanted perhaps, but far better than you feared. Philip notes, yes, I was quite afraid that we would have to be more carnal in our dealings. Still, I think that there may be an easy fix to this, Philip notes. I will need a specialist to speak to, however. What's your plan? Blythe's behavior of rampant paranoia and obsessive control shifted ever so slightly after I nulled her. Granted, posting a bounty on me isn't the greatest step, but it was a step where she had minimal control and was inviting in strangers, albeit in a somewhat controlled way. If I can get some time with a specialist in axiom imbuing, I should be able to make an axiom scrambling collar or bindings that allow an axiom-dependent alien to survive indefinitely, but would block out any other effect, including this enhancement, Admiral Cistern states before considering, but I think you should check if it's not already doing so. From my observations of Adapt Magi, there is a great deal of focus required to maintain such an effect. Yes, however, this one is automatic, even if current axiom restraints can hold it out. There's also the fact that these women are more or less addicted to the boost. It's much like a drug in this case, improving their performance at great cost. It's pervading all over again, Admiral Cistern sighs. I believe it's called meth these days, Philip teases. Inhalable horsepower. A bright and cheery voice adds in, and Herbert pops up for a moment. Hello, sir. Hello, Herbert. I'm glad to see you're still as perky and eager as usual, despite all the fun you're having. Tons of fun. I'm breaking this planet clean in half when I get moving. Glad to hear it. Try not to break everyone's toys, though. It's rude to not let others play. Philip chides him, and there's a delighted laugh in return. Then the sound of quick feet over the call, and Admiral Cistern leans to the side to watch him leave. He's really learned to lean into his physical age, Admiral Cistern notes. The boy has outright told more than one cult he's spying on them, walked up with full-on spy equipment in plain view, and got a seat on the lap of cult heads as he did so. I am so very proud of that boy, Philip notes with a smile. Anyways, I'll get you in contact with the Nerd Squad, full cooperation. Do you need more? Thank you, sir, but not for now. The point of my orders is to take this world for the British Crown. We can be allies of the Undaunted, but we need to be a force of our own as well. I understand, and thank you for your help, Sir Philip. It was my pleasure, Admiral Cistern, and thank you for the help you're giving me. I think there would be a minor mutiny if I refused you. You've left an amazing impression on the Nerd Squad. All according to plan, Philip notes with a smirk. Indeed. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some more paperwork to get through. Making sure that my sons and other civilians on the Inevitable don't end up grabbed by arrangement systems. Yes, best keep your sons safe, sir. Not to mention keeping those poor women safe from more capable individuals. A pair of old friends of yours are on the ship. I'm very aware that at any moment Miss Stepanova could appear behind me with a pistol. I assume the other is Master Koga Daiju? It is. I need to set up some proximity alarms, Philip notes, glancing over his shoulder. Maybe not. His grandson and the ninja village he started will keep him busy. For a time, sir, then he's at the head of an army of mystical stealth masters. True enough. It is good to speak with you again. Still, I'll be transferring you over now. Enjoy. Thank you, sir. Take this damn thing off me and I'll ram my fist right up your cockpipe, the furious former Vatra screams. She's tied up, bound onto a rolling platform, and with a muzzle on. Canadors are scary people when upset, and when a bloodthirsty lunatic among a species that considers blood-splattered power armor to be fashionable wants you to hurt, they look damn scary. Unfortunately for her, Dis is invisible, and while his current outfit is not an empty suit with gloves and a pair of sunglasses floating above it, do not give away the fact that he is in fact rather frightened. Widened eyes on his face just means he sees more. Not that she can tell. "I can smell your fear, boy," she hisses out. So apparently she can tell, not good. "I may be afraid, madam, but I am no fool." Dis counters. "Now, from where did this bloodlust come from? You were recorded as only being a hair more battle-eager than the average Canadors during your time with the Empire. But I will eat your soul," Brahmastra screams with foam dripping from her lips. Once again, Dis is thankful she's trussed up like the catch of the day. Were she to get loose, the white foam around her lips would be bright red in very short order. "Can't eat what I don't have," he mocks her. "Now, madam, please, when did you go from enthusiastic to a complete fucking lunatic?" There's no point trying to actually interrogate her at this point. She's so agitated she can't even think, which means the best he can do is keep poking at her and make note of whatever she says in case something slips. "I will break you beneath me." With your hips, I hope? Or has your bloodthirst overwhelmed the lust that's endemic to the female creature? He sasses the woman. Sure, she's scary, but every new avenue of fear quickly grows tiresome. She's just a rampaging idiot, not a threat. "You're not worthy to even touch me," she howls out. "But you want to touch me," Dis taunts. "No, I will have this world and all others for mine. I will hunt across the plains and shatter all who stand in my way." "And how will you do that with a muzzle on?" Dis asks, and there's a cracking sound as she clenches her jaw so hard that a few teeth start breaking. Damn, the woman is completely... There's something there, something growing stronger in her axiom aura. The rest of the energy swirls around her, and it's like staring at the eye of a storm from space. All clouds except in a single incongruent circle. Perhaps incongruent was the wrong word. He'd have to look it up again. But it seems to mean something wrong, and there is definitely something wrong. The problem is, examining the strange thing that seems to be all but between her eyes means getting closer to a woman with the power, desire, and manic obsession to reduce him to a puddle with maybe some strips of meat and bone splinters in the puddle. He adjusts his shades, swallows his fear, and walks closer to the woman, trying to vibrate through her restraints without axiom to help her. Something is seriously wrong, and the sensation gets odder the closer he gets. It's feeding into itself, growing more solid as she goes further and further into her berserk rage. When he reaches arm's length, the threats are replaced by animalistic howls for his blood. Whatever that thing is doing to her, it's bad enough to all but strip her mind from her. Drool and bloody foam is being sprayed everywhere as she thrashes while howling. She's clearly broken a few teeth in her unthinking rage, and his eye ridges are up and up and up. No doubt were he visible, his expression would be more in place in a cartoon than on an actual person. She thrashes harder and harder as he inches closer until she suddenly stops. He rushes closer and quickly puts 2 fingers to her neck to feel out her pulse. She starts growling. It's going insane, and she's exhausted herself. Of course, she can't draw in enough axiom with a collar and burnt through what little caloric reserve she had with her tantrum. The effect in her aura is still active, though, feeding directly into her brain. It feels like a Gravia, but heavily distorted. He's seen Gravia before, spoken to a few, and while it's disconcerting to feel like an idiot while speaking to someone couching things in simplistic and childlike terms, they had a presence to them beyond the visual that made it feel like you were working through the most complicated math you've ever seen around them. This is similar, but it's focused. He can't decipher it, but Brahmastra starts thrashing again, and there's the sound of metal and fabric straining hard as she lunges for him. Her mask brushes up against his muzzle ever so slightly, and he backs off. The strangeness on her had just churned harder. Invisible frown on his invisible face. Dis walks back to the table and starts looking into her documents again. They had focused on the time before she went mad with bloodlust. But something like that. Helen, do we have any information from before she signed up? The first few years of her being with the Empire of Gavali are missing from the file. He asks up at the camera. A hidden speaker then crackles ever so. I'll get that for you. Do you still want to be in there? She's starting to bend the gurney. As I am now. No, but someone needs to keep an eye on her. So I'm pulling the pin, Dis says. Copy that, Helen says, and he pulls a pin out of his lapel and places it on the table. His clothing shivers and fades away with him. Invisible as well. She'll know he's still here, but he's much harder to hit, and he has several weapons on her. If she breaks out, she's getting coil shot right to the center mass first, and then a flashbang follow-up. If she keeps it up, it's knife time. I'm going to kill you for this. Is that what that thing is telling you to do? He snaps back. What thing? That thing between your eyes. The thing that grows stronger the angrier you get. Is it your master? Who's pulling your strings, puppet? I am no one's puppet, she roars. Ha! You don't even know why you're angry at me. You can't even think straight. Shut up. How long have you had that thing? I assumed it was just part of your aura at first, but once it really gets going, it stands out pretty clearly. Dis asks. Fuck you. I thought you didn't want to fuck me, pick your lane woman. Dis taunts and something audibly snaps, and he shifts to the side while drawing a heavily modified coil gun in pistol configuration. In his hand, it's invisible. Brahmastra thrashes in her restraints, breaking them more and more as she moves. Dis reaches into his pocket, feels along the rims of several devices before drawing one out. He primes it and tosses the gas grenade at the woman's feet. Dark blue smoke starts billowing out as Dis quickly retrieves a rebreather to fit over his nostrils and muzzle. The room fills with the dark blue smoke, and Brahmastra's struggles grow weaker and weaker. You all right in there? Helen asks over the speaker. Yes, he says in a distorted tone through the rebreather. All right, she seems to be down. We're about to vent the gas. Get out of there. The residue is going to highlight you. Understood, Dis states.